Look at this amazing view. Now as a Hagrid lookalike, I feel right at home playing this game, have been loving it so far. Luscious forests, mysterious hallways, and shops littered with a multitude of storytelling props. So, join me as I play hide and seek with light fixtures all across Hogwarts, discuss breakdowns, wireframes, portfolio shots, modularity, and ask one very important question. Why does Hogwarts Legacy look like this? Cheers to the Patreon backers for making these videos possible. You can support and gain access to industry guest talks, Discord community, and tutorial videos by following the link in the comments. Let's get started. How are we doing, folks? You're a wizard. Let's get into this. So we got some stuff on Miro. I got some video clips. I've got a web page up to illustrate about how long and how many people it takes to make a game like this. So if you've not played Hogwarts Legacy, absolute banger so far. It's massive. It's such a big game in terms of the amount of rooms you can run into, the complexity of the interior. Oh, it's such a big game. So we got some breakdowns for it. But one of the first things I want to showcase, if we look at this, right? This is the credit or the confirmed credits on Moby Games. There could be a few people not on this, right? Of how many people worked on this game. So almost 3,500 with 3,600 actual credits. A lot of studios, a lot of code dev. When you train to get into the industry, right? Kind of have to make everything yourself. Yes, you might throw some mega scans in there and a bit of this, a bit of that. But to get the best chance for you to get a job, you need to be able to showcase that you can do multiple things. You can make materials, make modularity, do text density, all that sort of stuff. When you get into it, you don't have to make everything. In fact, I know environment artists where a lot of their skill set is in level art. So for example, they won't open 3ds Max at all. They might open it once a year to do something technical. Their time is spent in the engine, set dressing, moving it a bit left, moving it a bit right. In other studios, environment artists will make props and do the level art as well. So it really depends on the size of the studio and all that sort of stuff. But for Hogwarts Legacy, you can see this credits list is absolutely insane. Freelancers, outsource, co-dev, the main studio themselves. How can you actually find work as a freelancer? It's often word of mouth. It's not something that gets covered a lot. So I'd like to bring up today's sponsor of this video. Let's get into it. Fusion by Devoted is a platform that connects freelance artists with clients using a simple, stylish, and stunning website hub. I love the electric blue visuals of the website, and the format follows industry expectations of how portfolio work is navigated when clients are looking to hire artists. In fact, when I registered on the website, I was able to automatically sync my thumbnails, content, and descriptions from my portfolio, and then reorder and adjust the content using the website's flexible navigation tools. I'm able to set rates on my order work, as well as my current rate, which clients can see when navigating to my portfolio homepage. It's easy, flexible, and takes away a lot of the nuisances of finding freelance work when you're on your own. Artists can create a profile, upload portfolio work, sign an NDA, set preferences, and then have the platform process the admin work and payments. Another reason why I support Fusion by Devoted is because the team also do a number of knowledge shares on their YouTube channel, which, as you know, I am a big fan of doing myself. So a big thank you to the team for sponsoring this video. Also, fun fact, the team prepared a Hogwarts Legacy inspired art collection on the website in preparation for this sponsorship segment. That's a pretty awesome gesture, and I had a lot of fun looking through their handpicked selections as inspiration whilst I was making this video. You're a wizard. All right, we're back. Now, first things first, let's get into the modularity and the wireframes, but I don't know if it's because I'm playing on PC a few years later, but I've got a few clips here. It's very interesting. Let's look at this. So I was having an absolute ball triggering this sort of light culling system, right? I know they've got I think it's some sort of GDC talk on this, but I know in Unreal you can LOD by distance, but this isn't just LOD by distance, right? This light is disabling based on where the camera is looking, but I guess because of the updates over the last few years and that I'm on PC, it's gone a bit finicky. But this is some of the stuff I was running into, which, again, not a huge deal for me, but it is interesting from a lighting art perspective, because when you're kind of walking in these areas, you can see where they're putting fake lights, or I don't want to call them fake lights anymore, call them guided lights. Get ready. Boom, turn off. I have a better clip that can illustrate this, actually. Here, so if I turn the camera really fast, I'm going to turn it, boom. So what's funny is right now the spotlight isn't on. I've paused it. When the camera catches up, so you can catch it, it's going to turn off. So you can see they've got probably a spotlight up here maybe that is faking the global illumination coming from that stained glass window. And when you have a light that hits the surface, it gives it more material response. So yes, you do need guided lights a lot of the time. You can't just rely on the surface emitting enough light. And in the slivering ground hole, you see this super obvious. So this is probably like the lighting with the baked lighting, but then we get a material response. And by the way, I've got all the settings ramped up to high on here, right? So we have a bit of ambient lighting, and then we get all our dynamic shadows and material response from like a big light that pops in here. Yeah, I don't know why that's happening. It could have been just from updates over time, but it was interesting to see where their fake lights were coming from. And they put them in logical areas where there are openings in the wall and the stained glass, right? It helps make things pop. That being said, we've got some modularity, we've got some wireframes. There's a few things I want to discuss here. So let's just take it in, what we've got on the screen. And the first thing I want to draw attention to is the modular stone fence from Vitaly. So let's look at the notes we've got. Modular caps aren't deleted so that maximum flexibility can be achieved. So usually what you can find is on a modular piece, artists will often, for optimization purposes, delete the side cap, which is fine for super hard surfacey things, right? But when you have organic stones, you don't even necessarily need to be on the grid perfectly, because these stones are going to like pop in and out at certain sort of areas. And that's going to add to the organic nature of these snapping together. So that's why you still see these end cap points on here. And that's why you see on this piece, it's got a bunch of silhouette. It's not perfectly on the grid like that, right? Because it's an organic mesh. And when you put these together, you can see that it's just a natural formation. Now, you can see like this little bit here. So, you could probably just like grab this big rock here, right? And just shift it over a little bit to kind of break up that line. But you need the side faces on because it gives you flexibility. You can use this wall on its own. You can use this wall with one of these here. And then over here, you can have the same wall over there. You can extend it multiple times. You can have a wall with, this pillar in between every sort of section. You just get maximum flexibility. And this person has quite a few different kits. So again, a much more of a less organic in terms of its silhouette. But again, keeping those cap points on so that you can kind of mix these in together. Now, maybe on the floor, if we look on the floor, maybe the face under here is probably deleted. It looks like it may be because they probably never intend for this to be flipped. It's always going to be used on the ground. So the faces underneath might in fact be capped out, but at least in that screenshot, it looks like they've got like a deleted face at the bottom. Same again here. Once it's all merged together, you can't really tell in a lot of places where that stuff snaps together. So you got to imagine for the whole game, Hogwarts Legacy is a massive, you can go so many places. This kit can be used by everyone on the team to dress in the most flexibility ever. So Vitaly's done a good job of making this flexible kit that other environment artists, freelancers, and all that sort of stuff, outsourcers, can use this anywhere they want when they're in a level, in a zone. It lets them be flexible with the stuff that they're doing. So second row, we got more of a modular kit, but for buildings. So these are from Yevhen. Sorry if I'm getting your name wrong. And then the very far right one is from Mackenzie. So let's look at the Mackenzie one first. So we have the same sort of fundamentals from the stone gate. A bunch of sort of wooden like scaffoldings and little bits and bobs to place on buildings or in front of buildings. It's all kit based. When you're open world, the more kits you have, the better. Nice presentation showing all the little individual pieces. And these are probably all drawing from the same sets of textures, right? And you can see you can get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5, 10, 15, 20. You can easily get 20 variations out of a single texture if you're really making things flexible. Now for the building, this is a good example of, how modular do I go? If you go too modular, there's so many pieces to deal with. If you do chunkier pieces, there's less things for you to deal with, which means it can be easier to place things around. So there's no right or wrong answer in terms of how big or how small to make the modular piece. For your personal work and you're just starting out, I'd recommend bigger modular snaps. But when you join a studio, the metrics for modularity are going to be outlined by your team anyway, right? So you will adhere to whatever makes best sense, really. So good use of chunky modular pieces. You don't need to be too modular unless it's required. So yeah, so we've got some big pieces here with like multiple elements like the rooftop wood pieces, the wood beams. This part has a fireplace on. This part is the same, but with like a clean fireplace. This part looks the same, but with, different textures on, because there's going to be so many interiors you can go inside. Different little roof thingies that you can just go plop put it on top, floor piece, multiple windows and doorways, because there's a lot of buildings in this game, and this is just a typical formation of how you could make one of these. The more kit pieces you have, the more flexible it's going to be. What I like about this one is the roof kits. So one of the things I want to bring attention to here is meshes can slot in. They don't have to be merged all together on the vertex point to be a watertight mesh. Usually, so for this, for example, this is just a separate mesh that has been plopped on top of another mesh. It's not merged in on the vertex level. Now, some schools can have the bad habit teaching people to model everything out of a single shape, whereas in reality, for environment art, the more flexible you are, the more efficient you are. So there's going to be a time and place for you to merge meshes together and a time and place for you to crash a lot of stuff into one another. Do the research, look at modular breakdowns. By nature, modularity is literally crashing shapes into one another, having it either meet at a grid point or not meet at a grid point, then using a pillar to hide the mess, you know? So it's all smoke and mirrors. But what I like about this kit, again, big chunky pieces can just slot onto a multitude of areas. Again, big chunky piece. This is not separate to this. It's all merged, not merged together, but it's as one static mesh to use in various areas. For the roof, it's more of a classical technique where you have tiling texture. So this is obviously nice arrow, bro. That's a tiling texture. And then when you get to the edges to define silhouette, you can do this a few ways, but usually what you have is you have like a texture, and then you have, you know, the thatch like this, right, as a texture. And then that is used as an alpha map. And when you put that onto like a roof, it is essentially just like a plane with some divisions in, bop, 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 and then, you know, maybe a division in the middle so you can bend and make the forms. And then you just clip it. You just clip it onto the end. And because it's using a similar texture and color, like if you really look hard, you can kind of see, right, where these are popped in. But you can have a very long strip like that. You can also have very tiny strips. And in those tiny strips, right, this one here, you can, in the side profile, just lift that plane up like that. So it actually gives silhouette from a distance. So yeah, really cool technique. Same thing for stone roofs as well. I don't think, do we have any stone roofs here? No, but if you were doing stone roofs, and you can kind of see it here for the wall, you have, you know, your tiling texture, and then you have a kit piece. And if you wanted, you could have little bricks that pop out that are part of another kit piece. So again, mix tiling textures with unique props to get the best result that you need. So yeah, like the modular chunky pieces on this, you can slam the shapes into one another and you'll be good. So again, the credits for those were Yevhen and Mackenzie, and the previous one was Vitali. Next, I want to get to the wireframes for discussing general techniques they use. So first one is, we've got this wireframe of one of the shop fronts. We have this section is flat with a tiling texture on, and then you just dress a bunch of the edges that are closest to the player, because as a player, you're down here. You're like, oh, I'm a wizard, Harry. Yo, what up? What up, G? So all the player sees is this sort of big reed here, right? So that reed is going to be a lot of meshes. And then back here, you know, you're probably not going to see too much, right? So you don't need the bricks everywhere. Likewise, from what we said in past meetings, God, that's work kicking in. From what we said in sort of past videos, little pieces of wireframe to push and pull so nothing is perfectly straight, especially for Hogwarts. I mean, the villages around Hogwarts and the castle itself, it is very rustic, it is very wonky. So you have those in. Same sort of thing here, tiling texture, mesh edges. And you'll see, once you start thinking like that, and seeing the separation, you're going to see that everything's like tiling textures. Then a mesh breaks up the edges. Then a mesh sometimes goes in on the surface. So again, this is still a very relevant technique for games today. Not everything is going to be virtualized and nanite. So this is still a very core technique. Our usual tri-fanning. So we fan up into a silhouette, and then on a flat surface, we fan back down. So nothing new there, stuff we've discussed before. Again, I've highlighted these meshes because they're hat. You know, you don't have to merge everything into one mesh. These are little hats that are chilling to hide the intersection of the roof into the little arch. So there's a bunch of separate meshes here. The windows are just crashed into the roof, and then you have the little hats that are crashed on top of the windows, and then you got your little brickies that are helping hide transitions between the roof shapes, not scattered everywhere, mainly towards where the player will see most. And then you got your plane with divisions in, and then cutting in, again, tri-fanning for a basic poly shape, and then using some secondary reeds to help hide the transition. But not too many, because again, it can get expensive. And that's the formula you see across all this sort of stuff. You see it here as well, crashing in shapes. to help blend it in. And then we've got one wireframe of an interior. Nothing too crazy here. There's little triangles everything's very organic in its shape. The big arches, we see the old tri-fanning, so we tri-fan in... like I said, we're not tri-fanning all the way up to this point, because remember in past videos, we spoke about that if you tri-fan into a single point every time, you're going to get super thin triangles. So that's why you see this sacrifice here, right? So you see that this edge actually goes down here, then this goes up here, and then we go up here a bunch, and then we go across, and then there's another one here. It's done that way to try and keep triangles chunky, because some engines struggle with small triangles, some don't. Like if you look at, I think there's a few breakdowns from like Cyberpunk, right, on ArtStation, where the triangles are super thin, but they seem to be able to get away with it. In other engines, that could cause a lot of issues. Round shapes have segment. Do not have low poly shapes like that, because it just looks weird unless you're a stylized game. Yeah, nothing too different here in terms of topology count. A lot of simple geo. The books are all individual because you can knock them over. If you could not knock the books over, that would be a single mesh with the insides of the pages deleted out. So it all comes down to what is the context of the scene? What can you move? What can you hit? What are the things that you can displace as well? And that's sort of the behavior we see here across the board. So overall, nice chunky modular pieces. You can be organic in your modularity where things won't line up perfectly on the grid, but they will line up in organic nature next to each other, which again is fine. It all depends on what type of meshes you're doing. Use chunkier meshes to help form buildings quicker and set your environment art team up for the best success they could possibly have. Those are the lessons to take away from Hogwarts Legacy, which again is a beautiful game, thoroughly enjoying it, and I'll keep playing it as well. Any questions, leave them in the comments below. But for now, peace.